So you might hear a echo. So you might hear, okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to EduTalks 12 live session. I am Dr. Shawnee Hardware, and I'm so excited to have this topic. With me today are two co-hosts and our three esteemed panelists who are so excited to share their opinions on how to motivate students and engage them more in their learning. But before we get into the discussion today, let me say welcome to our panelists, Javier. Luen, I did practice this, so my apologies. Dejanay Allison, as well as Tejanay Shelley, right? So we have very similar names. Also co-host Dr. Annette Walker and Aldine Ellis, who is substituting for Professor Aldine Ellis, who's substituting for Principal Cole. So our topic today is, what are the challenges and promises of student motivation? And you might be wondering, why this topic at this time, especially with the students on summer break? Not that we don't want them to get a summer break, but we're helping students as well as, more specifically, educators plan for the next school year so their lessons can be more engaging and they're able to better cultivate the students' interest in their learning, because we know that students' interest is paramount to their motivation. And cultivating students' motivation has been such a mooted topic in academia. There's so much research about the importance of student motivation, but little consensus around how to stimulate students' motivation, especially around stimulating their intrinsic motivation. So that's their personal motivation to complete schoolwork without having someone remind them that, you know what, that assignment is due. So could you get on it? Or in class to participate in classroom activities. So this is why we're having this topic today. Okay. So let me introduce to you our panelists. We have Tejanay, our aspiring doctor-to-be. She is 14 years old. She studied at Tomlinson Christian Academy before graduating and moving on to the Yorkcastle, and she put that in, the Yorkcastle High School. In September of this year, she will be going to grade 10. So she will be, I guess, doing the science subjects. We need to find out a little bit more. Then we have, are you saying yes, Tejanay?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I did the sciences too, but I ended up in education. So you never know. I'm still a doctor, but I did the sciences, just letting you know. So, you know, keeping it open. Then we have Dejanay Allison. Dejanay Allison attended the Bromsfield Early Childhood Center, where she graduated as valedictorian. So we're looking forward to her engagement. She moved on to the Solid Base Preparatory School, where she participated in the school spelling bee competition, and she was also featured on the Principal's Honor Roll. She's presently a third form student at the Campion College. She's a member of the Writers Club, Girls Code, and the badminton team. She's a certified first aid volunteer. She enjoys reading and volunteerism. Her aspiration is to be a lawyer or to be in the field of law. Okay, looking forward to our future lawyer. And finally, we have Javier Llewellyn. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing that terribly. And I did practice. I apologize, Javier. It's all of the double L's in your name is twisting my tongue up. So Javier is 14 years of age. He will be in grade 10 at York Castle High School. I suspect it's the York Castle High School in Brownstown, St. Anne, this upcoming year. He wants to be an attorney of law and to make his mark in the field of law in the future. So there you have it. You have our panelists. I'm sure they're excited to share their opinions with you. So I'll now pass it over to Dr. Annette Walker with our first question.
All right, so thank you for that lovely introduction. And welcome everyone, wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, and those of you who are on here via Zoom. So I'm just gonna start with a little bit of discussion. So our panelists, we know that for a long time, especially in established academic literature, that students' motivation, it's really a precursor, or you'd say important in terms to motivate their participation, positive engagement, and overall academic success. And yet we know that many scholars and practitioners, they're still troubled about how to motivate academically disengaged students. So my question to you panelists is, what are some of the issues that directly relate to students' lack of motivation to learn? So what are some of the issues that directly relate to students' lack of motivation to learn? And I'm going to, anyone can start. I leave it open to you.
Okay.
All right, Tejani.
Well, the first thing that could relate to a student's lack of motivation is the support of their parents. For example, a student whose parents are active in their school life, or if they have high expectations of them, or just encourage and push their child, they will be more motivated to learn. And another factor that can lead to it is the learning environment. Well, I think students like an environment that is safe or secure, a positive environment. And I think it should be fun enough to enjoy learning, but at the same time, serious enough to, actually learn something.
Awesome, thank you so much for that. Anyone else would like to share a similar or perhaps share a different perspective?
Yes, I'd like to add.
Go ahead, Dejani.
Another reason for demotivation in students could also be teacher-student incompatibility, where the student's learning style isn't exactly matching to the teacher's teaching style.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that teacher-student incompatibility? I like that. I actually love that phrase. Can you give us an example of what in terms of, for our audience? Give us an example.
Yes. So there are many different types of learning styles: read and write, audiovisual, kinesthetic, whereas there are also many different kinds of teaching styles, such as demonstrative or lecture-based. So if the two different methods are like oil and water, then it would create misunderstandings for both the teacher and the students, where the student believes that they aren't working well enough to understand, whereas the teacher believes that they aren't teaching well enough to enable the student to understand.
All right, so I see that both you and Tejani, you came well prepared. So we're gonna listen to what Javier has to say. Javier, you wanna expound or express something different, or did you have similar ideas?
Well, I'd like to give my take on what on this. So all these issues, they can be put under the broad umbrella of engagement, which would consist of 4 factors: engagement of parents, engagement of teachers, engagement of students themselves, and engagement of their peers. I will elaborate on the most concerning issue, in my opinion, which would be the engagement of the teachers. Most teachers, they didn't become teachers because of the paycheck. They came into this field because they thought they could make a difference. However, they are hindered due to the limited resources they possess, and therefore cannot effectively operate as our second parents.
I like how you're talking about that secondary mode of socialization. Javier, thank you for that. Okay.
All right, so I turn it over to Professor Aldine, or we just say Aldine, that's your turn to pose your question.
You can call me
panelists.
Aldine. Thank you so much. All right, so it's great being on with everyone. Thanks to everyone who is here. I'm sure our panelists will be happy to answer my next question. As you know, we are living in an information or digital or new media age since the mid-20th century, and we know they're more connected to technology than ever. So this question should be quite interesting for our panelists. So just to throw this out there, anyone can jump on it. So the question is, to what extent has increased use of technology and social media influenced students' interest in learning? And do we have a volunteer? Anyone wants to jump on that?
I would like to answer.
Go ahead, Dijane.
Well, technology and social media have both their pros and cons. For instance, technology, as a pro, during the first 2 years of COVID-19, laptops, tablets, phones were on high demand due to the online learning that had to take place due to the pandemic. At the same time, it served as a distraction where you could find social media on those technological devices, which were used as a stress alleviator, because being in a new environment, learning could take a toll on our mental health. Yet at the same time, social media still has pros, as it allowed engagement between you and your friends, which isn't exactly the same as being in person, but it could somewhat keep up with that. And at the same time, there were accounts on the different social media apps or websites that served as learning places for students to gain further knowledge on what they're learning at school, which would make it easier when they're in their online classes.
Very, very interesting answer, Dejane. You obviously made the point that technology has good and bad. It's like a double-edged sword. It does two things at the same time. I just wanted to follow up on that. For you, how was it balancing, the good and the indifferent for you for technology? Personally, what was your experience? Did it take, maybe your parents helping you, or just you personally being motivated to continue learning?
Well, technology played a great role for me. Without my laptop, I had no way to access school. Yet at the same time, social media being on my device served as a distraction, but it also helped me because that was the only way for me to find an outlet to release my stress. And at the same time, I found helpful resources while doing research. And I was able to share that with my peers online using social media.
Sounds interesting. A lot of self-motivation there. All right. So going over to Javier, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yes, thank you. All right. So technology and social media, it can be both positive and negative. Students, they're heavily influenced by technology, but it's more on a social than an academic level. Students spend their time on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the list goes on. Nowadays, technology can be considered as a part of students' culture. This can be positively used to reach the students where they are, bringing the students the education as needed as they scroll through apps like the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. However, on the flip side, some students negatively interested and use technology for every different purpose except for education.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. So we have a subset of students, the good ones who will use it for benefiting their education, while on the other end there we have some who are actually negatively impacted. Tijane, do you want to jump in here now?
Yes, agreeing with everything that Dijani and Javier said, it does have its positive and negative effects. For example, some students would use it as a way to get more resources for their education, or having a more blended approach to learning, or even engaging with different persons, and it allows them to have their lessons be more personalized. While the others, they would use it for mainly entertainment purposes, everything except educational things. And I think that is where the negative things really come in.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Dr. Harder, over to you.
Oh, you can go ahead and
Or
ask your follow-up.
okay, very good. So definitely, I just wanted to know, anybody can, take this one on. Do you think that our teachers could be more intentional with incorporating, social media into learning rather than students seeing it as, this escape at home? Do you think it could be used in the classroom, or is it too deadly of a weapon to use for learning in the classroom where it is, contained by the teacher?
It could definitely to me it could be definitely used, because it's all about reaching the students where they are. So if they are going to, if we know, if the teachers know that they're on the social media, and it's reaching the students where they are, so they will have the it's providing them access to the information, without them have to, at their fingertips, basically, without them have to go in on Google Classroom. It's on TikTok. They have the educational things right at their fingertips.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, Javier. Dr. Harder, over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I think, as someone who was teaching online during the pandemic, trying to use all of those fancy technology, and my students are unable to access it because I did not know how to give them access to it. That can also create a problem in terms of teacher training, right? And I did attend a workshop on how to use these type of tools. So I think your recommendations, Javier, are good in terms of engaging students, but on the other side, teachers also need those tools as well to engage students. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about cultivating students' interest, the use of technology in terms of cultivating interest and social media, the pros and cons. I want to ask you specifically, speaking more to extrinsic, I think my tongue is being confused today, motivation, or students' external motivation. So there is a lot of research, pros and cons against using rewards as motivators for students, as external motivators for students to promote self-motivation, so their internal motivation. Do you see value in using rewards as a way of motivating students' engagement in the teaching and learning process?
Definitely, because students are motivated by rewards. It makes them feel like at the end of their day, their excellence is being recognized. An example at your castle would be students getting merits. So when they do exceptionally well, get good grades, they participate a lot in class, those things, they get merits, and it feels good. And this motivates them to do better, so the teacher can give them rewards that help them push and work harder. Not only does it have to be tangible, but it can also be a gesture or a show of gratitude. Teachers can also take the time to make fun lesson plans that incorporate real life situations, which make it better for them to learn.
So I hear you're speaking, Javier, to incorporating what they'll say in my field, students' lived experience or their out of school experiences. I remember those merits and demerits, it's a few years ago since I've been in high school, I'm not out of it. So I remember those merits and demerits, but now students need stars and all these little stuff, these fancy, like gift cards and everything. I'm like, come on, man, just get a little thing on your paper. Okay, let me go over to Tijane and then Dijane.
Okay, so using extrinsic methods to encourage students to, attain academic excellence will work. I mean, students are more determined when they know that they're working towards something. So small things like a sticker or a piece of candy or something to bigger things like a small class party during lunch or, certificates. It goes a long way for the students because they feel appreciated for what they're actually doing or what they're putting forward.
Yes, I remember those parties too. Bringing it back to the good old days. Okay, Dejanay.
Yes. Well, speaking in my own experience at Campion College, we have the honors, second class honors, and first class honors based off of your average at the end of the term, being from 80 to 89 or 90 to 100. You'd receive a certificate, which is they're kind of similar to each other. The only difference are their colors. Yet at the same time, getting a second class honor, it's a great achievement, but it gives you this drive that makes you want to reach further to get the first class honors, which is simply a white card, but the difference is so large. It just makes you feel so accomplished and great within yourself to reach up to a different level of academic excellence.
Thank you. So you're saying therefore the external rewards are useful. I think what some scholars might say that students might be dependent on those external rewards rather than develop their internal motivation. But that's for a different conversation. We want to keep within the hour. So let me pass over now to Annette, Dr. Walker.
All right, thank you so much. I mean, for those of us who are just joining, I mean, you just missed some great, like a great discussion students have been sharing on the topic here. What are the challenges and promises of motivating students? And so with that being said, I know for a fact that in recent times, especially recently, the Jamaican Ministry of Education, they have been looking in terms of carrying out educational reform around the curriculum, the teaching and learning process, just to ensure that students' learning is actually enhanced. So how do you suggest then, and I heard Javier making some recommendations already, how do you suggest that teachers and parents, caregivers enhance students' motivation? I mean, their personal interests. And we're talking about that intrinsic motivation. So we just talk about that external or extrinsic reward. Now we're looking at the internal intrinsic reward. How can then the teachers, parents, caregivers, meaning like your grandparents, etc., enhance students' motivation to engage more positively in that teaching learning process?
Well, I believe that there is a limit to exactly what the teachers can do in the class. And this is because teachers are following a certain curriculum where they have to teach a certain topic in a certain amount of time. Due to this, you can't exactly go back to a certain point where one single child isn't understanding when there's a whole other class. In order to alleviate this problem, you could refer the student to the guidance department where there are clubs which might focus on that one point and even many more that one child is suffering with in order for them to understand more. For instance, if they're struggling in math, there's a math club. They want to pursue a career in medicine and they're studying the sciences, but they're struggling. There's a medics club and etc.
You have all those clubs at the Campion College?
Of course.
Yes, we
I
do.
don't remember having the medics club at front court.
That's awesome.
That investigation.
That's really good. So I'm going to turn it over to Tejane, or Tijane, I'm sorry.
Tijane.
Tijane.
So first of all, creating a kind of threat-free environment, one where the students feel secure, could help in them wanting to participate or take part. And sessions could be fun and engaging, where the teachers would kind of bring in more modern things where the students and them can meet. Also, a little friendly competition doesn't hurt anybody, so games can also be more engaging for the students. And the students will be more interested if they can take part in these games to win. And the students' motivation also depends on the teacher. So if the teacher is miserable, or if they're not interested in teaching the way the students feel, we're going to reciprocate the same energy.
What you say again? Tell us again.
Teacher miserable.
Tell us again. Can you expound on that? Because I know that there are quite a number of parents on here, and educators are also on here, and we really want to hear your comments. Tell us again.
What does a miserable teacher look like? Because back in the day,
Yeah. What does a miserable
it
teacher
was
look
just
like?
a teacher, you know.
That's a good question.
Tell us.
Well, a teacher who seems uninterested in teaching to the children, or if she takes out her daily stress on them, we are going to reciprocate the same energy.
Ooh.
So if the teacher is fun, if she tries to at least engage and help the students, then we will be more determined to actually pass our class or participate in the class.
Mm-hmm. So then, do you ever find yourself thinking to yourself, for example, you are so motivated, you're thinking about your future career, and you're in class and you recognize that the teacher is perhaps, she has some other issues going on, but you say to yourself, you know what, regardless of what is happening here, I'm here to learn. So I'm not necessarily going to give up the same energy. Have you ever found yourself personally feeling like that? Like, you know what, my parents are invested in my education. The only thing I need to do is to ensure that I am engaged in the learning process and I'm doing well. Have you ever found yourself feeling like that?
Yes, I have. I was in a situation the past school year where the teacher wasn't actually teaching. So I had to, do my own research and kind of teach myself, because I realized that, if I fail this one class, my whole average is going to fall, and then my parents would be disappointment, and disappointment is the worst thing that can happen, because after investing their time in us, we're going to just, make it look as if they're not doing anything. So self-motivation is very important.
Yeah. I love that answer, because I know that sometimes we all go through that struggle, and I appreciate you sharing that experience as well. I recognize the time, but we can go a bit further. Javier, you wanna add to what
Teaching.
you wanna add your points here?
Sure. All right. So, students, we use many different methods to learn. Given the opportunity, the teachers can use resources to find out these methods that work best. With necessary resources, if the teacher takes time to find out the way students learn, this initiative could be considered a low-hanging fruit. Because the truth is, no two persons are the same. So if no two persons are the same, what works for me won't work for you. Special focus needs to be placed on each individual to understand how they learn. Real-life scenarios should be used to help students relate to the lesson and give them a better understanding at the end of the day, so that at the end of the day, they can be motivated to do their very best, and the teacher will be satisfied to know that through their strategically thought of lessons, yes, I help that students accomplish their goal of doing well.
I noticed that throughout your conversation, you're constantly drawing on that teachers, utilizing or teaching according to students' lived experiences, right? So trying to engage them along that lines. And I do admire that you're driving that home in the conversation this evening. But I'm also wondering, taking it back also to you personally being intrinsically motivated. I'm going to pose the same question to you. Have you ever felt in your own self at some point that, you know what, I recognize that things are happening in the classroom, perhaps my thought processes are going faster, teacher has to be spending so much time with other students, I need to engage in independent learning. And that is what Teacher Nay mentioned earlier. That's what she was talking about, engaging in independent learning. Have you ever found yourself engaging in independent learning and motivated to do so?
Definitely, because math. Let's take math for example. There are topics that sometimes I may not understand, and like we get our end of month test, and when we think we understand, we then get back the results, and it clearly shows that we don't understand. And the teacher does his or her very best to try to explain it to you. But clearly something is off. So you can go to I'd go to YouTube and try my best to get my better understanding. And if there's anyone that I know that can help me, I'll ask them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we have our next panelist, Dejeuner.
Well, I at times often experience great amount of burnout where I just have no motivation to continue listening to my teacher in the classes. I'll attempt to fall asleep, be distracted, something else, where I have to go out of my own time to find a way to gain the concept that I missed in class due to my negligence. So I'll look on websites, I'll watch YouTube. Anyway, I'll ask my friends, family members, just to try and get an understanding. And for me, I tend to finally understand the concept when I get a graded piece and get it wrong. And I'm like, oh, this was what you were supposed to do. But I try not to make the same mistake next time. And seeing that I don't make that same mistake, I feel much better in myself, knowing that I finally grasped the concept. So it's a mixture of testing and failure, and then finally success.
Awesome. I appreciate and love that.
And if I could say before Professor Aline comes on, I appreciate the transparency, and I think oftentimes we don't focus so much on student burnout. A lot of the conversations were on student lack of engagement and student being missing from the classroom space. And I see the ministry is doing a little bit more in terms of focusing on also students' mental health. But I appreciate the introduction of, us having more conversation, more nuanced conversation around what student burnout look like, hence the reason to increase students' engagement and motivation. Okay, Aline, over to you.
Okay, sure, thank you. So I've seen where the conversation has really been focused on the student, teacher, parent relationship. And so we want to broaden that a bit. We want to, ask a question that looks at the top-down approach where the ministry, what can they do to push towards more of a collaboration where other stakeholders are involved? So the question here is, how can the Ministry of Education create an inclusive education system where all educational stakeholders, including, and perhaps it's not limited to this list, students, staff, parents, and school leaders collaborate to strengthen students' motivation to actively participate in their learning? And we want to start with Javier.
So we all know Whitney Houston's song, Greatest Love of All. It says, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and help them lead the way. You know the rest. So to me, it is the most important initiative in order to better the youth of Jamaica. Because yes, we are the future. School is not just an environment for learning. It is a multifunctional environment for students from troubled homes. The truth is, you look at the generation and you wonder, is the future looking bright? Are we doomed? But if the right approach is taken, the children will be unstoppable. The onus is on the teachers to learn about the students first, not starting with a one-size-fits-all mindset. Teachers need to be taught how to approach issues with an open mind and know what method to use for what type of students. Teachers also need to create a safe learning environment, develop positive relationship with students, respect students themselves, because at the end of the day, we are all humans, irrespective of age. Onus is also on the parents to communicate effectively with both child and the teacher, because communication is the key.
I see you. Sorry, I see you're getting a lot of applause. I'm cutting your train of thought, sorry.
That's okay. The students themselves need to be more open-minded to learning. Some people just close their mind off saying, I don't get this and I don't think I ever will. But they need to be more open-minded. and also understand that it's okay to seek help. As they always say, teachers don't bite. It's better you seek help than at the end of the day fail the test, because everyone is working to one common goal, and that's for everyone to pass. The
Yes.
ministry themselves also need to allocate funds for the use of technology so that the use of technology can be more available in education. The ministry must also have diversity sensitization workshops so that the teachers can properly interact with students. It is my personal belief that my generation, if given the adequate resources, will be the generation to catalyze technological change.
Okay, thank you. I think you grabbed me with that Whitney song. It's a very powerful, it has very powerful lyrics, you know. So you spoke highly about teachers getting help from the ministry, allocating resources, and I'm just following up with you. Do you think teachers are doing enough to get help for themselves in terms of partnerships, you know, going out and seeking help, rather than, you know, depending on, you know, the ministry through a curriculum, which they have to, but in terms of their resourcefulness, do you think they're going out enough to bring real life people, you know, into the classroom to kind of motivate students? How do you feel about that?
Well, teachers try. Let's be honest, they try, but this no man is an island. So they say that you can't one person cannot be doing everything. Yes, the teachers may lobby for those things to happen, but at the end of the day, there's someone still higher up that must help them. So they can't do it themselves. They need their administration, principals, the ministry themselves need to help with that.
Okay.
I can see
so
you
we're holding. Go ahead.
No, I can see you being an advocate for those teachers, like a lawyer for the
I was
teachers.
just gonna say, teachers should be giving you a round of applause, even right now. You're holding the ministry accountable. Okay, so jumping over, chime in. Could Tijane chime in here?
Okay, so the ministry could create an organization that would join not only the parents and teachers, but all other educational stakeholders. They would have to come together and with open minds, plan programs or put together systems that would contribute resources that can motivate the students to willingly partake in their learning experience. Also, they would have to remember that students there's an age gap called generational gap. They would have to look at that and see that there are things where, for example, technology, we are more technological. We would need that kind of resources. So if they could come and put together that would be helpful.
Okay.
I agree with you. Yes, teachers need a certain ecosystem to function. They need help, and especially with technology, bringing in all of those resources would be good. Thank you so much, Tijane. Tijane, over to you.
Thank you. Currently, in most schools, there's the Parent Teacher Association, the PTA, where overall problems regarding school and the students themselves are spoken about, and solutions are found in which to alleviate those problems. So rather than creating a new system, I believe that the current system, the PTA, can be built upon to strengthen and develop it into a system where everyone is taken into account. Rather than it just being the parents and the teachers, the students themselves are allowed to join the meetings and voice their problems to allow them to be confident in their issues and to find solutions. And also there needs to be a response team. Not all the time parents or the students themselves are able to physically attend meetings. So there needs to be another means for them to speak out on their issues. Although there are online meetings, even at times this is a problem. So what could be recommended is creating a board where people can voice their issues. For example, a bulletin board where people can anonymously text and speak on their issues, where a specific response team or other people experiencing the same problem may answer and there be a solution made to help alleviate the problem. In schools already, there's a student council where things inside the school are being solved. So the merging of the student council as well as the PTA could create a better education system for everyone.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh,
I love
that's
that.
deep.
I love all these answers, and I see people on YouTube are also loving the answers,
Love that.
giving you kudos,
Mhm.
and saying you're doing a very good job. So articulate, so well thought of, very good answers.
Aldine, did you have any follow-up question for Dejane?
Oh.
Because I wanted to ask her.
Oh,
You can go ahead.
no, none at all. I just wanted to, commend, all of them for just as Dr. Shawnee said, how they put their words together, with good examples and research. And I specifically liked Dijone's comment about, the student body, because gone are the days when there's PTA and, that's free time for us. She's reminding us that that's an opportunity for students to insert their voices and, to let them be heard. Dr. Walker.
One second before Dr. Walker, I see Mrs. Dixon, who recommended these wonderful students, is saying that at York Castle, students can use their merits to purchase items at the merit store in the shop. Wow, that's fancy. And she's also voting for Javier for the Minister of Education or the JT president or even prime minister. It's good to have a guidance counselor that believes so much in you, and saying all the students are intelligent. So forget being a lawyer. Just go for the ministry, the Minister of Education. Okay, over to you, Dr. Walker, and then we need to take comments from the audience.
So Dejane, I'm wondering, and I want to make it personal. I'm going to personalize it to you in terms of your own context, because in Jamaica we recognize as well that certain schools have certain programs that are more, I don't want to say developed, but the truth is that they have more programs in comparison to others. And so I'm wondering, you talk about that whole notion around inclusivity, where, creating that hub where students also have that voice in the decision-making process. I'm wondering too now, in your own context, have you had that experience where you're able to express yourself in that form of sitting, or is that something that you're just thinking of and expressing now so that we can share this with the Minister of Education?
Yes, I have my own personal experiences where I was able to voice my own issues in the school. Each class has a student council representative, and during our form time, where our form teacher will come and we'll do games or simply speak out about our problems, the representative may come around and ask, is there anyone who has a certain problem that I need to bring up with the student council body on that specific day? And we all get our turns to raise our hands, speak out. If there is a question or a problem that's already been raised, it's answered then and there. But the more important ones are sent off to the student council group where they discuss it. And if it's something even greater that the student council alone can't solve, it's brought up to the school's main body along with the principals and etc.
Look at you, awesome. I'm wondering if Javier or Tijani would like to comment on that with respect to your own context. Anyone can open the mic. Javier?
Well, myself and Tijane, we are both student council reps, and yes, it can be done. The issues, that's what the job is there. The position is there for. We're supposed there to represent the students, to bring the issues that are needed to the respective persons. So it should. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tijane?
I also agree. If the student council body cannot help with the issue, then we would go to the higher ups, which is the principal or other representatives for the school, and we would try our best to try and help the students with whatever issue that they're having. Or if it is an event, then we do our best to help them to actually engage and enjoy themselves. So I do agree.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We want to again acknowledge those of us who are here in terms of our participants joining in on Zoom, and those who are listening in via YouTube and Facebook. Our youth here, panelists, they're discussing some of the challenges and promises in terms of motivating students. And so we're going to turn it over now to those of us who are here. If you have any questions, we're leaving that 14 minutes. Let's see, Omar Smith, or Professor Omar Smith. He's a professor here. He's also Jamaican. He has raised his hand. He has a question. There's also Dr. Minetta Edwards, who has a question. She's in Jamaica too. So go ahead. Go ahead, Professor Smith.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker. I must say I'm really impressed with the eloquence and the substance that Javier, Tejani, and Dejani have conducted themselves, and kudos to the parents, to the teachers, and to the community that obviously are producing these three amazing leaders. Now, one of the things that I wanted to raise in the discussion is not a question, but I know we focus heavily on like motivation or lack thereof of the teacher. And I want to bring us back to a little bit of reality, because the Orlando Patterson report has just been completed and has been submitted to the Prime Minister. And one of the key findings of the report is the lack of resourcing, or the under-resourcing of the education system. And I think that has a lot to do with motivation and student success. And I think the schools that traditionally perform well, they have a very robust alumni association that do a lot of fundraising, and that helps to supplement or augment what the government provides the school to operate. I've said it on this program already that the closest country we can compare ourselves to, which is Barbados, and they spend over $3,000 per student in terms of education. Here in Jamaica, that number is a very paltry $146. The current COVID crisis, the 2 years that the student lost, the Patterson report has indicated that is $2.5 billion just to get the students back to where they were. And of course, with all so many competing interests, again, where do we find this money? So I think that has to be taken into context. Thank you very much for accepting my comment.
Well, thank you for that point. And I think the students mentioned that in their questions around the need for resources. We have our teacher advocate, Javier, who made it very clear that it's the ministry's responsibility to provide these resources to the teachers, and not solely the teachers' responsibility to get these resources. So thank you for reinforcing the point.
So Dr. Minetta Edwards, you can go ahead with your question.
Okay, it's just a comment. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to add something to Javier's list when he meets with the Minister of Education. I'm just wondering if they, at the high school level, they could incorporate more videos in the session. As an educator for adult learners, I find that when I incorporate videos in the lesson, I have their attention, because usually I get them when they are coming home from work. They just get in from work. So I have to find ways, use strategies to keep them thinking, get them involved in the lesson. So I use a lot of videos, and trust me, it has been working. So Javier, find out from the minister when you meet with him if that could be used at the high school level as well. Also, we have now a lot of ebooks that are available to us. My students give me sites that I can get ebooks from time to time. So this additional expense to purchase the books can be minimized. We can go to ebooks. Lots of resources are there as well. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else? I saw Nicola. You came on camera. I'm not sure if you wanted to ask a question. Anyone else would like to pose a question or make a comment? Our panelists are here. They're young people. For those of us who are joining in or listening in, they're young people from Jamaica. We have two of them from York Castle High.
York Castle
High School and the Campion College. Any comments? Any questions?
Good evening.
Hi, Annette.
Hi, I am joining late, but based on what I just heard, my thinking is students learn in a different way, right? And if you incorporate a lot of UDLs, Universal Design for Learning, some students learn better with videos. It's not that they're not paying attention, but if the lesson is dragged out too much, you lose them. I am speaking from overseas. I am teaching special education to students. And since the pandemic, it's like everyone requires these specific and unique style of learning. Because they miss out on so much. And it's not that they don't know what they're doing or that they're lazy, but they need this additional support. Every student learns different. I was educated in Jamaica until university, and I didn't get a choice of how I want to learn. It was always teacher-centered and not student-centered. And when students take a lot of participation into their lesson, they learn better, not only by, I remember learning, I just like memorizing a lot of stuff. I do not know it like 3 months after. You memorize it just to pass the exam. It has to be looked at a different point where students have this, what I would say, participation into their learning. So they decide, they have choices. And you take into consideration what they like, what their interest is, and put it into the lesson.
Thank you so much for that comment, Annette. You're my namesake.
Dr. Walker, could I comment?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think both comments from the last two persons are really interesting. I think as a teacher, I used to teach in Jamaica at Dijonais School, so I know for sure that there is a resource issue for when we look at it, from a broad perspective. But I think a lot of teachers, I'm hoping, based on my experience, have tried to practice differentiated learning, where we cater to different needs. So you have the audiovisual learners, you have those who like to write, those who like to read. And I think it is something that needs to be stressed. It was stressed in my department, for sure. And so those are some of the things that will help to pull students into the learning experience. And another thing, I think the ministry has moved in terms of the curriculum and the expectation towards giving students choices as well, where they work on projects, giving them options to work on projects. So creating that real life, situation. I think a lot of teachers have actually started to move towards that where the curriculum is concerned, at least 3 years ago. So I can imagine with the curriculum and the whole pandemic and all of that, I can imagine that people have been more active. Teachers have been more active in their approach to teaching and to learning. So I think we've come a far way.
Okay, thank you very much.
As opposed to your comparison years ago.
Thank you very much for that comment. I don't know, I know the panelist parents are here. I don't know if you want the opportunity to say something before we close, trying to keep within that hour mark. So leaving some space.
Just a comment, please.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I believe that as parents, we have to play a very integral role in the lives of our children. And we also have to teach our children how to be intrinsically motivated.
Yes.
Because not all the time teachers are going to be able to motivate a student. And I also will briefly mention that since COVID-19, it has taught teachers many creative ways of, being able to pass on knowledge in the classroom. So teachers just need to continue to build on that, and students need to be more interesting in their work and are willing to research on their own, because 99% of things you will learn is through research, not in the classroom. You'll get a glimpse of it in the classroom. The children have to, since social media came in and the laptop is now a part of the classroom, you just use it for more educational purposes so they can learn a lot more.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Allison. Not sure if there's another parent who wants to give closing remark before we finish on the hour.
I just want to say on behalf of the Llewellyn family, I just want to thank Avir. He did a great job. We are all so proud of him. Yes. And we just want to just give him that props.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for saying that, Sophia. I got my tongue twisted when I was pronouncing the last name, so we won't do that exercise right now.
That's okay.
But thank you for that, yes. One last person. Okay, Andrea, I see your hand.
Hi, I am calling and speaking on behalf of Tijane. I would be remiss if I didn't say she didn't do a good job. She was phenomenal and all the panelists were great. I also want to commend them on the fact that they were able to do their own research. They were able to motivate themselves to learn. And given COVID and the changes in how we teach, it makes a host of difference. So Tijane, I'm so proud of you.
Yes.
I see her smiling.
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Andrea. And with that, we are going to close. So as echoed by your caregivers, we'd like to thank the panelists for spending the time to prepare and sharing their ideas, their recommendation as to how we can personalize the education, the teaching learning process, and cultivate students' interest to motivate them more. Special thanks to the viewers and the participants on YouTube, participants on Zoom, and the viewers on YouTube. My tongue is getting like saying, "Come on, girl." I got it though. And as we continue the conversation, I'm asking that you share the session with your friends and family on YouTube, and that you continue to engage with us, because we have very topical issues around educational system in Jamaica, not only highlighting challenges of the system, but as you can see, sharing recommendation as to how we can improve that system. So you can find us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. We try to be active there. You can engage with us, and we look forward to engaging with you in the near future. We're asking the panelists if they could stay behind. And with that,